WNST, Super Bowl 53. Full coverage brought to you by our friends at LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute. We're going to have Dr. Craig Bennett on this week and Dr. Kevin Crutchfield on as well to talk about all sorts of sports-related injuries, including my aching elbow, which they've gotten straightened out for me. World-class care wherever you are. It's LifeBridge Health Sports Medicine Institute. They are in Foundry Row in Owings Mills. This next guest is not joining me next week in Atlanta because one of his players was unfortunately a New Orleans Saint. He is an NFL agent running all things 360 Sports. You can find him out on Twitter under his name. Craig Domann joins us here. That's two N's on the end of that. From Colorado Springs, Colorado. You training for the Olympics, Craig? What's going on out there in Colorado Springs? Other than you and that's all I know about Colorado Springs, man.
Well, Norm, it was 55 degrees and warm this week, and then we got a blizzard, so I'm fighting. I'm looking like I should be a cross-country skier today.
Well, look, man, this is a fascinating thing because I had you booked on the show. You stopped by at Super Bowl. You've had a number of clients. I mean, Crockett Gilmore as a Raven was one of your clients. You're an NFL agent. You've had Rob Ninkovich. You've had Domata Pecco. You've had a lot of players. And then there's the whole aftermath of this New Orleans Saints thing that every player has a mom, a dad, a wife, an agent. I'm going to talk about it all next week in instant replay and review and whatnot. But run through what happens when an agent is sitting from far away watching what's going on at the Superdome and you want your player in the Super Bowl. And one of the worst calls I've ever seen in that sort of environment for the league that's now trying to get into gambling as well, really affecting who's in this game this week because I think the Rams are coming and I think the wrong team's going to be in Atlanta next week, Greg.
Well, I agree with you on that, but here's the thing. I got a different perspective on the whole officiating game, and that's because I've been a coach as well.
Well, I know it's tough work. Let's start with that. It's not an easy job.
Yeah, it's really, they make mistakes every single game. And, we as fans just put ourselves on the couch or in the stands. You see things a certain way, and then when you see the replay, you find out it was totally different. And so these guys have trained eyes, but they do make mistakes, and I think we have to have a spirit of the game where we accept some mistakes. Now, this was a blatant one.
Tell that to Sean Payton. Tell that to your client.
I know. Well, Sean, maybe Sean could have did a better job of coaching, and that play wouldn't have mattered.
You know what? And that is fair to be said, but the play did matter, and with the season on the line, with the Super Bowl on the line, they got the call wrong, and I think that's going to be a very difficult thing for the folks in New Orleans to accept, even the fact that they didn't like Roger Goodell to begin with. But
no, I agree with that.
But people are clamoring for full-time officials, though, and we're going to hear a lot of that next year. I don't know what full-time officials would do the other 9 months of the year, but it would be a better look for a league that's trying to, quite frankly, get into the gambling business now, and we got all sorts of problems with Congress and down to the FBI and the president, but I do wonder what happens when the leagues start really making money and want to be a partner with the gambling community with these games and point spreads because we're heading that way. That's where we're going. That is the next pile of money they haven't figured out how to get to yet, right?
No question. The NFL is a money-making machine. And whether it's something international, something in gambling world, they're going to find a way to monetize the product to, put more money in the owner's coffers because it's such a popular sport. It's so conducive to gambling. There's so many different ways that people can gamble that the NFL really would be foolish not to capitalize on it.
Craig Domann is here. He is an NFL agent at 360 Sports, representing players all over the league. You have an interesting little thought on where Tom Brady is in this journey. And, it's fascinating about the Lombardi Trophy being handed. We had the Lamar Hunt Trophy almost getting handed to Lamar Hunt's son, right, last week. The Lombardi Trophy and where we are with Brady and Belichick, if they win another one, I'm not even saying they can't win again next year at this point. I wouldn't put anything past these guys at this point. I guess 10 years from now we'll find out what they've done to cheat this time. But in regard to Brady and Belichick, they're out of trophy names to put these guys' names on. But this is 26 Super Bowls for me now. This is the 9th time I'm coming to see Tom Brady 50 feet high in the media center on the side of buildings. It might be time to start to think about where Tom Brady and Belichick are in this whole thing, right?
No question about it. I've been doing the agent business for 28, 29 years, and it's just remarkable the run these guys have had. You know, whether it's consecutive AFC championship games, 9 Super Bowls, it's just unthought of. I don't think we'll see it ever again. And I am not 100% sure if Lombardi won 2 or 3, but I feel like we should rename the Lombardi Trophy to the Brady Trophy after he's done.
Why him and why not Belichick? Interestingly enough, that would be the fascinating part of this. If you're going to name it after the coach, not the player.
Well, the coach there's no question, Belichick is one of a kind. I mean, he has his teams prepared. We'll give him the Lamar Hunt Trophy. And so we can change the name of the AFC Championship game, winner to the Belichick award winner, because I just feel like Brady, no one's done it like him. His ability to be a coach on the field, he's effectively a de facto coach. And when his offense is on the field, he doesn't always have, his Joes aren't always better than their Joes. And they find a way to win.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to argue that at this point and at 41 years of age. You know, from the agent business and the side of things, you had Rob Ninkovich there. What would he say about the Patriots what would he say about Tom Brady at this point? And I guess for all of the Patriots alumni, I mean, I run into Joe Andruzzi at the Super Bowl, and it feels like it was 20 years ago because it was, and he was still there, right? I mean, for all of these guys that have passed through this thing, the difference between New England and everywhere else, because it feels like it has to be pretty substantial, even for the places like, Cincinnati had one system for 16 years. The Ravens have pretty much had the Ozzie system until now, right? Pittsburgh's had the same system and the same people. Andy Reid's taken the Philadelphia system to Kansas City. But there's something about the Belichick thing that's so different than anywhere else, and obviously the results indicate that, right?
No question about it. And I really feel like it boils down to preparation and beginning with the end in mind. And it looks like no other organization, the Patriots prepare to play in the Super Bowl every year. And they have their season broke up in such a way that they can be in primetime performance shape in January and February. And their attention to detail it has to be at a higher level than anyone else because of their ability to capitalize on situations in games. They did it against Kansas City this last weekend, and during that time, there was times when, Tony Romo did a phenomenal job of, broadcasting. And you talk about, hey, they brought this defense cover zero at the most critical time when Mahomes wasn't expecting it because they didn't show it the whole first half. So their ability to prepare, I believe it's their attention to detail, the way they plan their season, and I also think it's their mindset. I think at some point in time, the team's mindset, the culture, has to be a championship culture, or you're not going to be a champion. And Bill Belichick has mastered it.
Craig Domann, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
We're good.
No, Craig Domann's here, NFL sports attorney, and you can find him out on Twitter at Craig Domann. That's Domann. Send some players by Super Bowl week. He will not be on Radio Row last week, but from time to time stops by and says hello to us. For the league and this offseason and cap space and the growth of the league, this is a very unique, obviously, offseason for the Ravens, right? I mean, Ozzie will not be calling the shots. Ozzie has picked every player literally in the history of the organization. Eric has been a part of, 95% of the players in the history of the organization. He's taken the thing over. But every year we hear the same story here in the era of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Elodie Nott and Joe Flacco and all the players that have been here. The Ravens have never been players in the free agent market because they've never had cap space. We've heard all these years, Oakland has $80 million and Cleveland has $40 million. And, we've had 40 cents around here for 20 years. This might be the first time with the jettisoning of Joe Flacco that there's going to be a little maneuverability around here. But the cap keeps going up, right? And that's part of what I think everybody in the league looks at and says, well, where are we going to be in 21, 22, 23? That the cap is managed into the future, and the future always feels like it's growing in the NFL, right?
Goes up almost 9 to 10% every year. So I think the biggest thing with the Ravens is their identity. When in their heyday, they were a defensive dynasty. Ray Lewis was the quarterback, and the offense came along for the ride. And I think the management has to decide which side of the ball is going to be our identity? Are we going to build around Lamar? How are we going to all our acquisitions and all our transactions with players during the offseason has to be catered towards what their identity is going to be.
Well, we're going to find that out here. Certainly John Harbaugh, part of that identity. We've played the shell game around here last week. I mean, the Ravens hadn't held a press conference, hadn't said anything to the end of the season. I think everyone knew Harbaugh was sort of floating on the tongues of other owners as, hey, he's going to be available. They're not going to make the playoffs. They were 4-5. If anything, John Harbaugh just solidified how great a coach he is in November and December, getting this team into a position with a completely different offense to move forward. And then you see the names being drawn out of the hats by these other owners. It's no wonder that Bisciotti wanted to keep John Harbaugh around. There's a feeling that the pool might be a little thinner these days, right?
I agree with you on that. I think they're taking shots at offensive coaches that haven't really been play callers. They don't have a lot of experience. And so I think there's going to be the bust rate for head coaches is going to continue to get higher. We're going to have more one-and-done coaches. Arizona had one. He was obviously a defensive coach, but I think some of these coaches are not prepared for what the NFL is about, and especially as a head coach. Not anybody can be an assistant coach, but you can hide a coach as he grows and as he learns as an assistant. When you're a head coach, you can't hide.
Well, Josh McDaniels probably be a great example. I mean, a lot of guys have stepped up and then stepped back, and Wilkes this year also, the ownership. And look, ownership's fickle, right? They're all the 32 different clubs. They're managed 32 different ways. They want 32 different things. You know that from negotiating with them, all of these years. But there is a part of this where John Harbaugh came from a special team side, and a dozen years later, well, he never ran an offense, he never ran a defense, he never called plays. That would be the knock on him. But he manages things, and the head coaching job has become much more of a CEO job than a glorified offensive or defensive coordinator job. That they're different jobs, being an NFL head coach and being a coordinator, and not everyone is good at that part of it, right? Just because you can call plays doesn't mean you can lead men.
I couldn't say that any better, Nestor. I would say that the head coach is such a different animal than either one of the coordinators. And the head coach has to cast vision. He has to establish his culture. He has to hold people accountable. He has to develop his staff. He's got to get his staff going in the same direction he's going. He's got to put an environment in place to where, whether it's the draft room, whether it's free agency decisions, whether it's final cut downs, everybody's on the same page and everybody respects everybody for the betterment of the team, not the betterment of whether it's a special teams coordinator, OC, or DC. And that is a very difficult challenge. And then I think the other thing you'll find is some of the best players have some of the biggest problems. And some organizations and head coaches can manage those guys and get the best performance up from them and keep them clean off the field. And other ones that don't have accountability don't. So in Kansas City, you have a couple guys that they managed, and then one guy they didn't. And so in New England, they managed a guy for a while that Cleveland couldn't manage, and then all of a sudden they couldn't anymore. So
look at Pittsburgh right now. I mean, the Antonio Brown, the Le'Veon Bell situation shredded their season. They could be the ones in Atlanta this week, but they didn't have the right people. I don't know what else to say. I mean, and I'm a Tomlin guy, and I'm a Rooney guy, even though I hate the Steelers. I think if the problem there is the Rooneys or the Tomlin, the problem might be you in the mirror if you're Antonio Brown or you're Le'Veon Bell or you're Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, at some point sitting on the outside and watching this has to piss them off, but I don't think it's a Mike Tomlin Steelers leadership issue. It didn't look that way on Facebook Live a couple years ago, Craig, at least to me,
Well, here's something that happens in the NFL, and then I'll get back to how this applies to Mike Tomlin. In the NFL, every year is equivalent to a decade in real life. All the things that happen, all the drama, all the opportunities, all the pressure, it's equivalent to one of ours decades. And so you've got to recharge, get reinvigorated, get fired up every single year as a player and a coach in the NFL. You got to reinvent yourself, and that's why Tom Brady's so dang good. he acts like he's 25. He has the spirit of a man that's 25. He still plays the game for the joy. He loves the game. Well, in Pittsburgh, and I'm not intimate with their situation, but they have to reinvent themselves at all levels. And ultimately, it comes down to the players because they play. But if the coaches are not fired up and reinvigorated, the players are not going to be either.
Craig Domann is here. He is 360 Sports and an NFL player agent. He will not be in Atlanta next week, but we're going to have lots of guests from Radio Row. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Curio, the holistic wellness spa, cannabis education, as well as a yoga studio there, massage. They do it all in one campus. Brian Sanderoff is my man. He's going to be joining us later on this week. You can learn more about all that they do there at CurioWellness.com. Just stop by and say hello. Yes, you can walk in. Yes, you can say hello. It's just south of Timonium Road on York Road, Curio Wellness. Also brought to you by our friends at Strategic Factory Marketing, printing, promotional goods of all kind, taking us down to Super Bowl 53, full coverage from the Georgia World Congress all week long. Luke Jones is going to be riding shotgun as well. Craig Domann here from Colorado Springs, but representing a lot of players here. This is a wild offseason time, right, for all of you guys. Mobile, Alabama, a couple weeks now out on the Combine in Indianapolis, where we go every single year. I don't know how the agents do it. I mean, I think of the more thankless jobs, I always think I wouldn't want your gig. And I say that to every agent. I say that at the Combine. I say that at the Super Bowl. I say that when I see them. I just think that it's a difficult thing you guys do. And maybe you wear the black hats in the negotiations, but I have real respect for having to go out and recruit athletes at 18, 19, 20, 21 years of age and try to navigate them through this because it is really, really large. I think I see that in Indianapolis when these kids who even play at Nebraska or Alabama or other places show up with sort of saucers in their eyes to some degree.
No question. I think we have the opportunity. We have a tremendous opportunity to impact young men's careers. And if we can earn their trust and we can guide them along the way, we really get the opportunity to help them maximize their God-given ability, maximize your career earnings so the finances go along with that. And they have a lot of fun. The critical points in this business are when you don't have trust with your clients, they start doing their own thing. They don't utilize their counsel that they have available. It can be guys in the locker room. It can be their agent. It can be their financial advisor, and they make silly decisions. And that's when you see drama. That's when you see aborted careers. That's when you see guys that sign a big deal. And they only get a fraction. They really only get the guaranteed portion of their contract because the team, they're cap casualty. And so as an agent, on the positive side, you really get an opportunity where the rubber meets the road to help young men achieve their dreams and gain financial security. On the negative side, if they won't listen to you, it's very humbling because you can see a career just kind of implode.
How's Chris Chester doing? One of my favorites that was on your roster at one point.
Chris is living in suburban Dallas. He's got 3 wonderful kids, and he's coaching his boys. He's taking all 3 of his kids to school. He is loving life. Well,
let him know I'm still angry. He was a Redskin, but he was a Raven at one point, so hopefully that's in the front of the closet.
Yeah, though, you know what? He came back this season.
Atlanta, right?
I think it was when they celebrated the draft class in 2006. And so I can't remember which game it was. But he loved the game, and he was, played for 3 teams, played the Super Bowl. Obviously was on the wrong end of the 28-3 comeback by Tom Brady a couple years ago. But, Chris Chester is what I would consider a model client. Did all the right things, faithful to his wife, great family man, took care of his money, and now the world is his oyster because he has multiple opportunities.
Well, tell him I said hello, and tell him next time he's back to look me up. Always good to run into you, Craig. I'm sorry we will not connect in Atlanta. I know you're sending some guys by, and, Peachtree Street, Patriots in the Super Bowl, here we go again. I'm a Rams fan all of a sudden.
Okay, so what are you picking for the game?
I don't make my pick till the end. And by the way, I stopped making picks for the Super Bowl 2 years ago because I hit the Atlanta score dead on. I predicted the score on Facebook and Twitter an hour before kickoff, and even when it was 28-3, the score came in. So after that, I just sort of hung my hat up. But I think the Patriots are going to win. I know enough after the last 2 weeks to think that, hey, the Chargers came in, look at them, and then they're losing 35-7 in the second quarter. And then I'm like, they got to go out to Kansas City. This kid's half his age. It's 5 degrees. And then here we are again. So I'm done betting against Tom Brady and Belichick. I'm just going to root against them. That's all. But I'm not going to pick against them. No way.
Gotcha. Hey, I got one short story. Jared Goff, during the summer, did a Red Bull commercial out in California where he pranked a JUCO quarterback for being a transfer. It had like 11 million views.
I think I remember seeing that. I remember Jared Goff with a sense of humor. I do.
Yeah. So long story short, my son happened to be the quarterback he pranked. And so he was going to Ventura College this last season. They ended up going 10-2, going to the state championship in California. But so I feel like my prediction for the game is that if it's a close game, there's no question the Patriots win. If it's a blowout, it could go either way, but I'm going to bet on the Patriots.
All right, yeah, I was going to say, you got 3 points with Tom Brady last week in Kansas City. I would think that was every gambler's like, give me Tom Brady in a championship game with points? Okay, I'll take my chances with that. Hey, man, always a pleasure to visit, man. Stay warm out there in Colorado Springs, no matter the weather, and we'll check in with you again sometime in the spring, all right?
Thank you, Nestor.
Craig Domann joining us here. 360 Sports, you can find him out online at Craig Domann as well as at 360sportsrep.com. Always good talking to the guys that stand behind the guys that play the game, including Chris Chester and a bunch of other guys, Crockett Gilmore, some other locals at 360 Sports. You can find me out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We're in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, in Atlanta next week, right here now. We never stop talking Baltimore sports.